then the thing with mail that people don't understand is that, number one, it's very easy to reverse engineer. Like it's not easy to do, but it's easy to reverse engineer because you could basically say, all right, if I'm going to get a 0.25% response rate, that's going to be this many calls, and that's a conservative number. And out of those calls, I'm going to get a certain percentage of them are going to be leads. And if I get this many leads, on average over time with follow-up, it's going to convert into a good ROAS, return on ad spend. So you can control that. And the calls, besides the removals, are actually pretty good leads because you think about it. You're getting a 0.25% response rate. The people who are calling who don't want to get removed probably have a problem you can solve.
Hey guys, welcome back to the Probate House Guy podcast. This is Brad, the Probate House Guy. Today I am here with my buddy Greg Helbeck from, well, I guess you're originally from New York, but now you live in Seattle as of last week, right? You're correct. Like a nomad now, man. So what you yourself, Greg? Like, tell us about you, like what you do, how long you've been in this business, that sort of thing.
Yeah, for sure. So I've been in this business since 2015. That's when I got started. I was 20 years old, still in college, and I went to a seminar and they talked about basically wholesaling houses. And I was looking for like an entrepreneurial venture to get into, and tried stocks and was like, I was super green in anything. So stocks were a little kind of blah. And then I learned about wholesaling and went through the seminar. And then I started listening to podcasts and ended up, going to like the next level seminar. It was like Big Pitch Fest, and spent like, I think $2,000 with my buddy. So $1,000 each, we split it. And they told us enough information to, I guess, be dangerous. They basically were saying like, you got to get leads. And I didn't have a budget to do that. So I deferred to bandit signs. And I connected with a couple local guys in my market who were doing more business than me at the time. And I was like, listen, like, I'll work for you for free or do whatever you need in exchange for some knowledge. And then, when I get a house, we can either wholesale it together or I'll wholesale it to you. So 9 months later, I found my first property. I made, I think, 10 grand, and I split 50-50. So I walked away with a check for $5,000 from a bandit sign, and I showed it to my parents. And they were like, because they saw me like working hard for free for 9 months and actually paying to work in theory, because I had to spend some money on signs that I was collecting from going garage sailing and flipping stuff. So I never wanted to have a job. And so ended up showing them a check for $5,000, and they were like, that's cool. It seems like this is starting to work. And then, every few months I would walk home with a little check for, $5,000 to $10,000. And, that's how I got started. And this was in New York, which is probably the hardest market in the country to do business in, if you look at it from an operational, logistical standpoint. So long story short, since then, I've been able to, this is like trying to compress everything in a short timeline, like I think at this point, I've probably done at least 230 properties over that, 8-year timeline. But really the most of the volume has gone down in the last like 4 years, I'd say. We've built out our business. I've been able to go in and virtually wholesale houses, not living in my primary location. So after I started doing consistent business, this was like now in 2018, I moved out to San Diego and was running my business virtually in New York. And, after that, we started to go into Delaware because one of my team members moved there. So I got a lot of experience with flipping and wholesaling and doing rental properties remotely. And, figuring out a way to be consistent so you don't have to live where you invest.
That's right. That's awesome, man. Love it. And I've enjoyed watching your journey. We first met through Investor Fuel.
Yeah.
Actually, no, we first met. You were working with John Martinez.
Yes.
And you sold me my ROI Sales Academy subscription that I still have to this day. Yeah, you did the sale. Me and you were on the phone. And you were the sales guy. I talked to you.
Interesting. That had to be in 2017 if that was the case.
It was about, 2017. Yep.
Thank you for my $1,500 commission, Brad. I appreciate it.
Yeah, nice. Well, dude, that course was gold, man. I mean, what John taught, now Jerry Green owns it. Jerry's a great guy. The information to anyone who's looking to like do sales training that's specific to our industry. The ROI Sales Academy, which, like I said, is owned by Jerry Green now, is fantastic. Like, just absolute gold. And it's not like anything new. It's like Sandler stuff, and it's like a mesh of different things, and Chris Voss all combined together, but tailored specific to real estate investing acquisitions. Like that's what it's built for. And it's just absolute gold. In a lot of your stuff, there's if they buy into the course, I mean, there's recordings of you in there doing sales calls and all kinds of good stuff, man. Like it's really killer information.
Yeah, so. That whole information changed my life because that's like, I guess how I got I on the map, I would say, because I was doing deals and I didn't know what I was doing with sellers, and I found this guy John Martinez, some random stranger in Missouri, and he had the niche product that was like, you know, a blue ocean at the time where no one was teaching it, and I was one of his first students, and I ended up, you know, really implementing his information and being proactive in his training classes. And he asked me to eventually basically partner with him to do like more high level sales training. So then he started bringing me around to all these masterminds. And that's how I kind of got known at first, was like I was John's like apprentice, I guess. And that's how I was able to build myself up kind of on the back of John in the beginning. So it was definitely a lucky bounce, but at the same time, you got to be doing the work when you have an opportunity like that so you can make the most of it.
That's right. There's opportunities knocking every day.
Every day, brother.
Jumped on that wave and you took advantage of it, right? And you're probably young and naive too, right? So you're just doing whatever.
Kid.
But good call for you, brother. Like,
yeah, now I look crusty and old with a beard and a mullet and bags under my eyes. You get beat up in this business a little bit, so now I'm created. Yeah.
Yeah, we were sharing war stories before we started, weren't we?
Good Lord.
Oh, we've been kicked in the nuts a few times.
I'm surprised I have all my teeth still, honestly.
Right. Well, you and I used to play hockey too, so we're used to get, knocked in the teeth, right?
Literally.
So, but yeah, man. So that's awesome. So now you're doing deal. You said you just moved to Seattle, like literally, I think last week, right?
Yeah, last week, first week of May. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's killer. And then what markets are you doing deals in right now?
So I've always stayed local to New York, even though I haven't like lived there full time since like 2018, because I grew up in that area. I know the area. I got a great reputation, network, and, I guess somewhat brand I've built there. So that's been I would say our core market in terms of transactions since 2000, really since like 2018, I'd say we really started like hitting the gas hard there. In between that, I will just kind of add some caveat. I was going to Investor Fuel a lot in person back in the day, and I was tired when I was starting about like all the New York bullshit, which we can get into maybe briefly. And I was like, I bet you it's easier to do this in a state where there's no attorneys. So I was like, literally picked Dallas, Texas out of all places back in 18. Yeah. And I'm like, if I can do virtual deals in Dallas and like avoid these attorneys for a little bit, I can save a lot of money up, and then I can throw that money into like real advertising in New York. So I was basically cold calling vacant, tax delinquent, distressed properties, like inherited situations in Dallas, and made a good amount of money doing that from like 2018 to 2020. Like that was my bread and butter, like niche, like title issue deals, and did that. And I saved up a lot of money from those deals. And I eventually started like flipping properties in Dallas because I had money saved from all these wholesale fees and whatever. So took a lot of that money, threw it into New York, built the business up there, and now, like I said, we're probably doing like in New York specifically, like 3-ish houses a month just in New York. Yeah. And then my acquisitions manager, who's been working with me for a while, ended up moving down to Delaware in, I think, 2021.
Okay.
And he was like, why don't we do some houses down here? I said no to that originally, but then we started kind of tiptoeing down there into the Delaware area, which is like 2 hours south of New York, 2-3 hours south. And it's the same situation where like there's no attorneys really that will kill your deal. Like the attorney closes the deal, but they don't like really impact the terms of the contract. So we started doing some marketing down there and found that that's actually a pretty wide open market. So we're doing another, 2-3 deals a month down in Delaware, mainly from a cash conversion standpoint. Like I can do a wholesale deal with no title issues in 2 weeks in Delaware because there's no with the attorneys. Like New York, it takes months to do just a basic wholesale deal. So between New York and Delaware, that's where I would say 90% of our business is going down in the Northeast.
And I mean, you probably cut your teeth doing things remotely in Dallas, and you had boots on the ground down there. I know you were working with McDougall, right?
Yes. Good.
You guys were doing deals together. So he had his people on the ground, and that's so critical to have. Like the sales piece, you can kind of do from anywhere, but I think it's still critical to have boots on the ground in the market, which is why I do with Probate House Guy, my model, right? When I work with investors, I'm getting the leads in online and my team's talking to them first, but then I'm partnering with people in the local markets to be the boots on the ground, to put eyes on the property, to assess the rehabs. Because you and I know sellers are liars, right?
That's an understatement.
right? I was just telling you before this call, we had a seller. We told her she could leave a few things behind. She said, oh, it's about probably a 10 by 10 dumpster. BS. It was my guy's there right now cleaning out the house. 4 loads of stuff. It's going to cost me $2,000 to clear this place out, right? You know, they lie to you. They don't tell you the truth. And then you feel bad because you got to go back and renegotiate. And I hate renegotiating. I'm sure you're okay with it. But I don't like doing it because when I tell someone I'm going to buy their house for $150,000, I want to do what I say I'm going to do. And I feel bad having to go back and say, sorry, you lied to me, Susie.
Yeah.
You know?
You have to have boots on the ground if you're doing it virtual. It doesn't have to be you, obviously, but you need to understand, you know, that local area. And I guess the virtual investing I do is like, technically it's virtual, but like, you know, I grew up in New York. Rhett lives in Delaware. So like we have an advantage that way. And then in Seattle now, I'm physically living here. Because when I lived in California, you know, I would personally show up to houses because I lived there, right? So it's like, all right, that wasn't virtual. But if you're going to, like, let's say, for example, you live in Florida, like Miami, and you want to invest in like Kansas City, Missouri, or Kansas City, Kansas, depending on, you know, where the house is. Same metro.
Right.
You need to have, you know, at least a runner. And when I say a runner, I mean someone who can go out there and take pictures for you and maybe meet a seller to sign documents for $100 a pop.
Yep.
Because, you know, you're at a big, and also meet buyers or contractors. Because if you don't have a physical team there, you're at a huge disadvantage, especially if you're like wholesaling, because if a buyer goes there and they don't know who you are, you're some stranger in Florida, they might go behind your back. So you got to have boots on the ground. It's very easy to do nowadays with the way technology is. But once you do like I remember my first virtual deal, I got a wire for $10,000 and never stepped foot in the house. And I was like, I think I'm onto something here. This actually works. Because it seems like a fantasy until you do it, you know, just like when you first start real estate in general.
Yes. You got to get over that hurdle too. Like I know, like a lot of the deals I do, I try, even if they're local where I live here in Georgia, I try, if at all possible, not to ever visit that property, me personally. Now, my team might go see it, right?
Yeah.
Positions person, but I try, like I was just telling you, I had to go over to my nightmare flip, you know, and that was like a couple weeks ago was the first time I had been to that property. I bought it in February. Like I'd never even step foot in that property. I had to go over there to deliver some tile to the tile guy because of whatever. He didn't have his truck that day. Whatever, right? So I was like, all right, I'll bring it to you because I needed him to do the tile like that day. But sometimes you just gotta get stuff done like now. So, but yeah, like having those people there is so critical. And then you learned like having the right people. And so how do you like vet a person that you're working with? Like, do you have a vetting process that you use to like figure out who you're going to work with? Yeah, that's a good question. It depends on who it is. So if it, like, for example, I use a lot of agents to sell flips and whatnot. I know them all in Delaware. We know them all. But like, let's say, like, I'll give you this is the best example I can give you because it's a real deal that we did in a random town. So I'll just give you some backstory. So once we started doing virtual business, you know, when I was physically not going to houses, I'm like, all right, why don't we just test some random market in Pennsylvania? Because I have a feeling that I can get properties on the cheap there for cheap, like $2,000 cost per acquisition, which ended up being true. So Reading, Pennsylvania, I'm sure you've never heard of that area before. It's like maybe an hour and a half, like west of Philly, like northwest of Philly. Yeah. And we locked up this row home. And I'm like, I don't know that city from Adam, but I'm like, all right, we got this thing for like freaking $15,000. Like, someone's going to buy this for more money, I'm assuming. And like, you know, not a great, like, safe area, but like 15,000, like, I don't think this is Detroit. So the first thing I did, because I don't live there, Brett doesn't live there, like complete virtual situation. I'm like, I'm going to go online and I'm going to find on Redfin. I love using Redfin for like everything. It works pretty much all over the country. I'm going to find somebody who is selling most of these shit properties for like 30, because it looks like the junkers, like the junk row homes, were selling on the market for $30,000. Okay, we make $15,000 on this most likely. Right. So I saw that one agent was selling most of the properties within like those the 2 or 3 blocks where my house was. Yep. And I'm like, his name kept coming up. His name was Juan. And I'm like, hey, my name's Greg. I called him. Hey, my name's Greg. I see you're selling all these like shitty row homes for like $30,000. I said, I got one. I'm looking to sell for $30,000. Can you go over there and, you know, bring your client or one of your clients, and I'll pay you like a $2,000 commission if you bring me a buyer. So he literally showed up to the property. I mean, this guy's like selling houses. This isn't some random guy. Like, he's selling properties. I can tell he's actually doing business there. He knows the city, obviously. He's from there. So he showed up.
I got on like a FaceTime with him or whatever, or phone call, and he brought the buyer there. It was a vacant house. He's like, yeah, we'll take it for 30. I said, all right, cool. I'll give you $2,000. He walked it. He took the buyer there, 13K profit after I paid his little commission. And that's how I found him. So, if you're looking for an agent, just go out and see who's selling all the similar properties that you want to sell and call them. I just did this yesterday on a Washington property, like looked at an agent, saw they're selling houses nearby, called them up, they answered the phone. There we go. If you're looking for like someone to take pictures, it's that as simple as going on Craigslist, making an ad saying, hey, I need somebody to take pictures for $100. You're going to get flooded with messages because people are always looking for that kind of work.
Oh, yeah.
You vet them out. You make them jump through some hoops. Say, what's your name? Can you do it tomorrow? And, you don't have a lot of risk there. It's $100 and some stranger. So I've done this before. Just get them to take some pictures, send them a Zelle or whatever.
Yep.
And it could be as simple as that. Or if you need a notary, 123notary.com. Literally type the zip code in and there's going to be 10 notaries you can choose from.
Yep.
It's so easy now with tech, man. It's just Edfin and notary.com.
For sure. I use a service called We Go Look to go look at, they take pictures and they'll do a property report where they will like take photos and then they'll like write down like if the house smells. Obviously you can train your Craigslist person to do that, but like they're kind of like already know how to do it. So I'll do that. It's a little bit more than $100. I think it just depends on where it's at, but we use that and you like load up your account with credits and then each
Go Look. That's pretty cool.
WeGoLook.com. Yeah. It's like a lot of like insurance companies and stuff, I think use them also, let me tell you, I'm going to share this nugget with you and anybody else watching. And we just signed up for this like 2 weeks ago, but there's a software out there that is called Company Cam, and a lot of contractors use it. And you can invite collaborators, and they don't cost you any more money. And they will take pictures, and it's geolocated with the like address of the property, and you can create tasks and checklists for them to do. And they can go take pictures, and they have to check each box and say, take a picture of the kitchen, take a picture of this, take a picture of that. And you can apply that checklist to like every single property. So you can use that for, like, I'm giving it to my acquisitions guy now because he's terrible at like pictures. And then it always inevitably, when we're uploading them to Google Drive afterwards, something fails or uploads twice.
Yeah.
So this is always uploading like as it goes. And then it has like an AI note-taking feature where like as you're taking pictures, or you can even take videos, you can speak to it and it'll like transcribe what you're saying and store notes on each of those photos.
Wow. That's super valuable, bro. Damn.
And it's only like, it's about people for $100 a month. And then you can have as many collaborators as you want, which you use your contractors or the lookers as collaborators. And they have like limited access. Like they can only like take pictures.
Yeah, it's kind of like the manager of PPC account. They can like edit the account, but they're not like in admin control. So you don't have to worry about your security getting breached, which I know you're very familiar with your corporate background.
Yeah, that's what I used to do in corporate America. So yeah. Well, dude, like, so now you're doing virtual, you're doing deals like all over the place. It's allowed you to be a nomad, which I respect that, man. Like, I guess if I could go back and kind of redo things, I was working like corporate job in my 20s and, doing that grind. And I wish I could like go back and like travel again, because now I have kids and, my wife doesn't like to travel a ton. So it's just like, I'd love to like be able to move around like you do. That's awesome, man. Love that. So how's that life? And you got a lady friend now and
yeah,
it's
awesome. Yeah. I first met her back in last summer in 2023.
Okay.
I moved to Reno for a little bit, and then we wanted to move up to Seattle. So it's cool to be able to travel with her now. Too much responsibility. So, we're going to Mexico next week. We're going to Jersey Shore. We got a couple other cool trips we want to plan. So I think the takeaway for people is like, depending on your situation, like if you got a wife and kids, it's a little bit of a different story. You can still do it. It's just a little harder. Especially when they start to get into school and whatnot, but you want to maximize opportunities when the window is there, so we're both aware that, we're not getting any younger. And this is the window to do things like that because, if you do have children one day and, it gets a little bit more complicated. So, with this business, you have to optimize for freedom and then you have to maximize freedom, right? Like, especially depending on where you are in life, we're basically 30 years old. So we're definitely not getting any younger, but, this is the time to do cool stuff. So I've been all over. Even before I met her, I've been to, Asia multiple times and Middle East and Europe and all that stuff. And real estate's the only reason I've honestly been able to do that, because not only does it provide income to do that, but it also provides that mobility. And that's why I was very intentional about doing it virtually for the most part, because even though, you could be in Singapore, like where I was, and I had to do business there, I could do that at night on my computer, right? I don't need to physically be somewhere. And I think when you make your first dollar, like, I guess online, I hate to sound like one of those internet marketing assholes, but, it really, opens up the opportunities where you can have that internet Wi-Fi money, as they would call it. Because, yes, you have to work, you have to use this, you have to use the computer, but, the phone and the computer are available anywhere where you have connections. So you got to maximize. You got to maximize these opportunities because, I had a business, at the beginning where I was in New York and I had to go on appointments and I hated that shit. And I still go on appointments to this day in Seattle. Yeah. But I don't do it a lot. So when I do it, it's like, all right, I'm going to a house, probably make, whatever profit on it. Like I'll go see it, but it's not like my core. It's not. Right. So here's the thing. I want to add this caveat. We will go on appointments, but it's not our standard process. Like in Delaware, like Brett will go see a house if it warrants an appointment. But a lot of the times, people will be surprised that you can do these deals, at least on the front end virtually, and then have other people help you like we talked about on the back end, and you don't have to physically go there to make money.
Right.
That's
right.
Key.
Now, obviously, there's value in doing belly-to-belly appointments.
Very much value. A lot of value.
You're going to give way deeper discounts.
Way deeper.
Belly-to-belly. But you could absolutely do this business virtually. I know a lot of people who do this business 100% virtually in multiple markets, and it's a give and a take, right?
Yep. Like, you make more offers, but you're going to convert less, and your spreads are probably going to be impacted because of, the lack of rapport or the lack of knowledge of the property. But, like you said, it's a give and a take, and you gotta take the good for what it is, and accept the bad.
And obviously when you're doing stuff virtually, and this will roll into our next little topic here, which is marketing, right? So what marketing, if you're doing deals virtually, like what marketing, I mean, you got to do marketing. That's the lifeblood of our business. So what works for you, or what has worked for you? How has your marketing evolved over the years?
For sure. So in the beginning, it was like bandit signs and handwriting letters, which is very hard to scale. And I'll use the word scale lightly because I have my thoughts on that. But once that started to I started to see the reality with that, and it's like hard to do and do it at a high level. I actually pivoted before, and I'll get into like high level direct mail stuff because that's our core channel. But I got to be like super transparent with this. Like this was in 2018. Like a list stacker didn't exist.
Nope.
Real estate was not like it is now. Like this was a different market. And what I'm going to tell you does still work, and I still make money from it. But back in 2018, nobody was really cold calling. The texting softwares didn't exist. List stackers didn't exist. So like I was literally cold calling vacant houses, and I was like 1 out of 6 leads was a deal. And that was basically free because I was using my phone, and I was just looking at like stacked data that I stacked myself with like a gangster software on like a PC that I had to get a computer just for the software I had called Accusate. Now you could just find all that on through list stackers like Envelope. So I was cold calling, and I was making a lot of money doing that. But once again, that was like, all right, I have to sit there and call or else I'm not making any money. So then I'm like, okay, and that resulted in a lot of revenue. So like, I'm going to take this money that I've been saving and actually put it into like real direct mail, like that I learned from our friend Todd Swaggerty.
Yep.
So ever since like really late 2018, early 2019, I started like strategically doing direct mail, which is our core marketing that we do to this day. We do this virtually in, we're mailing in New York, we're mailing in Delaware, and we're mailing out in Washington now. So the reason I like direct mail is, number one, you can mail anywhere. It doesn't matter where you physically live. And number two, the thing I love about mail is that you can pick who you want to mail, like lists, properties, like you can pick your target, basically, pick your poison, as they'd say.
Yeah.
And then the thing with mail that people don't understand is that, number one, it's very easy to reverse engineer. Like it's not easy to do, but it's easy to reverse engineer because you could basically say, all right, if I'm going to get a 0.25% response rate, that's going to be this many calls, and that's a conservative number. And out of those calls, I'm going to get a certain percentage of them are going to be leads. And if I get this many leads, on average over time with follow-up, it's going to convert into a good ROAS, return on ad spend. So you can control that. And the calls, besides the removals, are actually pretty good leads because you think about it. You're getting a 0.25% response rate. The people who are calling who don't want to get removed probably have a problem you can solve over time with follow-up. So I like mail for those reasons. We also do Google ads, and those have been pretty profitable. But the thing with Google ads that there's a few things that suck about them. Number one, you're operating on the back of Google, and Google's algorithm changes a lot, and the way the searches are set up changes. And it is what it is. You have to roll with the punches. Number two, the Google ads are highly competitive, and most likely the sellers are calling like 5 different companies. So if you're not like really fast to respond, you have a big disadvantage. And then the third thing I don't like about Google ads, and I'll tell you about what I like about them, is that the property could be anywhere, like within that market, right? It could be a shitty mobile home that's built in 1960 that can't get financing. It could be a house with no equity. It could be anything, right? It could be a short sale. Could be listed property, right? Obviously, mailers could be listed too, but you can't really control the product coming in.
Correct.
So you have to take what you get basically with direct mail. If I'm mailing single family ranches in Alpharetta, Georgia, I'm going to get those calls coming back. I know who I'm mailing, so most likely the leads coming in are going to be a product I might want to buy. Yes, Google ads, you can get good houses that come in, and the benefit from Google ads is that generally, they're more motivated because they're intending, like they're searching a solution, and they're actively looking for something, so they're a little bit more motivated. And if you can get on the phone with them quickly, they're pretty good deals. I mean, these people, want a problem solved pretty quickly. But, a lot of people just preach online marketing, but you got to understand the reality of online marketing if you want to really get good at it. And I prefer actually learning Google ads on your own, which is not easy. I just pretty much figure out how to set campaigns up, and I've had to run it for a while. But I believe that's a skill that's worth learning, because once you understand it, you're in control of your success. Because if an agency runs your shit, if they're doing a good job, you're depending on that agency. And then if they do a bad job, all of a sudden you don't know what the hell's going on. And if they do a bad job off the bat, then you're blaming the agency, saying the freaking leads suck. So it's not that hard to learn. It does take some time, but it's a valuable skill that no one will ever be able to take away from you. And I think it's worth investing that time and money to learn it.
Absolutely. And I have someone do my ads, but it's a guy, and he's done my ads since I started PPC. Okay. And I'm grandfathered into such a cheap management rate with him that, like, I don't want to give that up. Like, I've done the podcasts and watched the YouTube videos, but because I get in my campaigns like almost every day, at least 3 times a week. I'm looking in the campaigns, paying attention to him. I know what he's doing. I can see him making changes.
History. Yep.
And in fact, like years ago when he first started, I actually hired another company to audit him, and he didn't know that. And they looked at my campaigns and they're like, yeah, he's doing a good job. Like, I paid this company like $250 to like look at my ads, and they looked through everything, and they're like, yeah, he's doing a good job. Is it a local guy, or is it an REI vendor? You don't have to say. He's an REI vendor, so he I don't know if he wants me to give out his name or not, because I know he's kind of pretty booked up with clients. But he's been managing my PPC for since 2016 when I started, and I'll say I'm doing it. Yeah, I've been doing it since December 2016. I remember I first turned on Google pay-per-click the week of Christmas of 2016. And I remember within an hour of him turning on the lead, the campaigns, I got a lead. And I was like, "What?
That's crazy!
So cool, And ever since then, he's been managing my campaigns, and I've obviously morphed them now into just doing probate-specific stuff all over the country. But I've done it all, right? All the keywords, all the ad sets, all the different things, and I've learned that pay-per-click ebbs and flows, just like mail ebbs and flows. Some months it's like awesome, and other months it sucks. And also, like, if you're doing that, you have to look at it over a larger period of time. You can't get too granular in analyzing your Google ads
no, that's where people
drive yourselves bananas.
Yeah, you'll mentally have a breakdown, and you'll shut your account off. And I'm glad you said that point, because the thing that I've learned from Google is that, I'll give you an example. Like, we had an average campaign last year, and then we got 2 deals in 2 days from Google pay-per-click. Like, probably 50,000 in revenue off the jump. And then we had a slowdown, and then we got another deal for like 30. So it's like, you have to, the only thing with marketing that I look at, like, this is like, and I've learned this is from experience and banging my head against the wall forever. The only thing that matters period, is how much are you making versus how much are you spending? If you have a 3-to-1 minimum return on ad spend, you're fine, right? That's it. Right. Who cares if your cost per lead is $1,000? If you need 3 leads to convert, then your cost per deal of $3,000 is way better than the average. It's like, that's the only metric that truly will tell you if it is worth doing. And, I have a lot of people that reach out to me and they're like, oh, well, I'm cold calling and I'm getting leads for $20. I'm like, yeah, but you're speaking to 100 friggin' leads to get a deal. What's your time worth? Like, it's like, it is what it is,
Yeah.
Or get that.
Let's roll into another one. Pay-per-lead services.
Oh, don't get me started.
Came out, they were awesome, right?
Yeah.
But now there's so many people doing them that they're not as good as they used to be. And I pulled out because I was looking at my ROAS, and while I did have a ROAS, it was not as good as my other channels. So I said, no, I'd be better off allocating that money into my other channels than to continue to do this. Was I getting deals from it? Yes. Was I getting a ROAS? Yes. But I was only a 2-to-1. And I was like, well, that's not good. So I'm getting, 4-to-1 over here on probate direct mail. So let me do that. Let me do more of that. Right?
Here's the thing with pay per lead that people don't understand. And listen, I still do it from time to time. When it there was I'm not going to mention the company, but when this newer, now they've been around for a couple of years, newer PPL company came out, best marketing I've ever seen in my life because they were true organic SEO leads. I was paying about $300 for them, whatever. Great. The reality with pay per lead now is that, and I really spent a lot of time digging into this because I was pissed when the quality took a shit.
I remember when
at the end, I have my serious thoughts about this. I put online
2019,
2020, and then another one came out in 2022. Yeah, they'll go unnamed for now, but the reality is this: pay per lead is low hanging fruit. You could pay money, you get a lead. You have no skill, you need cash. That's it, right? So you can put a credit card, you could pay cash for it, whatever, right? So there's no real skill base behind that, and these companies know that people want leads. And there's a high demand, and there's only a limited amount of true organic SEO leads. So as the demand increases, the supply isn't there. So they have to dilute the lead quality and go do banner ads and maybe a little PPC and whatever, buying leads from other assholes. So the quality drops. And then if you really think about pay-per-lead, I'm spending pay-per-click, my own website money. And if I'm buying pay-per-leads in my same market, I'm paying money to freaking compete with myself to have some other asshole get the same lead to then try to sell it to me for 3x what it really costs. And I'm not against people making money, but when you're buying pay-per-lead markets in your own market, you're paying to compete with yourself, and it's just not a good look. So I think that it's a supplemental channel at best, right? Use it to fill the gaps, but if your business is built off of pay-per-lead, you're cruising for a bruising, as they say, because if that lead company goes out of business, then what are you going to do?
Yeah, and I found when they had to create more leads, what I started noticing is I would get, like you said, with pay-per-click, people are going to multiple sites.
Correct.
I would get the same lead within
me too.
minutes of one another on my website and on the pay-per-lead site.
Yep.
Right?
Oh, I've had that.
Then I knew, I was like, they're doing Google ads too, right?
Yeah.
They're not doing organic SEO anymore. They're doing Google ads too.
Yep.
And I'm competing for that. So, yeah. And
great.
You mentioned something earlier, and I'll circle back to that, which is follow-up. Regardless of what channel you're doing, you have to do follow-up. You can't just expect laydowns on every single channel.
I wish.
Right? So why don't you just elaborate on follow-up a little bit? We're kind of running out a little bit of time here.
So here's the thing with follow-up that I've learned. And this is I say, all my podcasts I put out, this is real world information from the trenches. This is not regurgitated theory out of a book. So this is from experience, right? I make a disclaimer because so many people talk about bullshit. Following up has to be very strategic because if you follow up with everybody, you're going to waste your time. So in our company, for example, we have a built out Podio system and there's a little button we can press. It's called Top 20. And I'm actually personally going to follow up with those people today because that's where the money's made.
Yep.
So you have to get the leads come in, process them, make offers. Some get accepted, some don't. But when you have a lead that you think is all right, this person's going to sell their house, just not right now. We have a process where we'll push a button. It goes into a certain tab in our system. And then we spend 80% of our time following up with those 20% of customers, because those are the people that are going to actually result in revenue over time. And then we have other follow-up sequences that follow up with the general masses. And then that's more of like, we're sifting through shit to try to find the gold. And then those people will maybe opt back in, and then we can potentially move them into a top 20 situation. So if you're doing follow-up, you have to be strategic on who you're following up with and how often you're doing it. And if you're just trying to follow up with someone who's not motivated, you're going to just be following up forever for no reason. So you have to have a process internally, whether you're a one-man show or you have a team, to understand who is really worth spending 80% of your time following up with, because this is such an I call this business a 95-5 business. Like there's 80-20 and then there's 95-5. 5% of the people that call in are going to give you like 95% of your revenue. So you got to really spend your time in the right direction, so you're not just blowing your time on leads that are never going to sell anytime soon. And, in our business, it's like, all right, you're selling your house. You need to sell. It needs work. You don't want to list it. Timing isn't there. Okay, you're going to sell to an investor, but just not right now. So we're going to follow up with you on purpose, strategically, in the right bucket, because when you do sell, it's going to be to us, and we're going to make sure we're staying in touch with you. But versus the other person, I'm going to list my house for top dollar. Okay, decline our offer. It's like, yeah, like have fun. We'll have an automated sequence follow up with those people, because they're probably not going to sell at a discount regardless. So you got to protect your time with follow up. That was the main point I was trying to make, because it's you can get burned out quickly in this business. There's a lot of things to do, and not everything from an activity standpoint is created equally.
And you've got to be checking in with the old stuff, because so we do something similar, right? And I started something this year, and I created a name for it. I did a YouTube video about it. It's called the outside in follow-up approach. So we have our like hot, warm, like recent stuff, right? Yeah. That we're following up on. Their frequency is a lot more frequent. We're hitting them more often because their likelihood to sell is a lot higher, right? Yeah. But then what I have my leads manager do is she also pulls a list out of our CRM based off of the date it's in there. So she'll alternate phone calls. So she'll make a phone call to the lead from 3.5 years ago or 4 years ago, and then she'll call one of the hot ones. And then she'll call the old one, and then the hot one. And she just does that every day, where she's calling an old one and a hot new one. That way she's always touching the old ones, because what would happen is sometimes she would get busy in a day and she'd be calling the hot ones, and then she would be getting phone calls in from direct mail and pay-per-click, and all of a sudden, and then she just like, the old ones would sometimes just fall to the bottom of the stack and not get called. Yeah. She got busy with stuff, right? That's fine, right? But you got to make sure you're calling them. So I said, well, just do this system. Call this one and that one, this one and that one, this one and that one, and don't deviate from that, right? And she just has 2 lists pulled up and just calls them boom, 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 boom. And that way you're working your way back to the middle, and you're always touching the hot stuff.
Dude, that's gold. Yeah. That's like a $10,000 piece of advice right there. Seriously.
And some people, like, they're not going to pick up the phone, but you got to make the call, right? You got to at least call them. And then we have our automated, like, emails and text strips and stuff.
The sequences.
So
well, how's this for a follow-up, Brad? This is actually with direct mail. Like, all right, because we were talking about marketing earlier. So a lot of people, it's like, you're going to drop postcards, new investor who's naive is like, oh yeah, but everyone's going to be motivated. Like, incorrect. But if you mail the same list for years and years and years, you get stuff like this that happens. I had a lady call up, I think this was last year. She's like, I've had your postcard for 2 years, and it's been in my drawer, and I just went into contract with an investor, and they totally screwed me over, and I've been getting your postcards forever, because it was like her neighbor or some bullshit. Mm-hmm. I'm ready to sell my house at a discount right now. This is my price. Can you do that price? And I was like, yeah. And it was like $30,000 deal or something like that. And I'm like, so that campaign might have been like 3-1, right, back then. Yep. Then you attribute the new revenue that came in from the old spend, and now it goes from a 3-1 to a 4-1 or a 5-1, right? Because like direct mail, it's like you're planting seeds all over the nation or all over your local market, and you don't know when those flowers are going to pop up out of the ground. So there's so much retroactive, I guess, revenue that can come in from a mailing campaign, because you never know when that person's going to call. And I've always found like the older calls, the aged calls, kind of like, aged dry steak or wine, way better, right? Versus the people who just call, oh, I got your postcard, what's your offer? It's like,
right. You got the dog and pony show people.
Yeah.
And then you've got the other stuff. Like, I did a deal earlier this year. I sold it in March. It was a wholesale I bought in right before Christmas or right after Christmas. I bought it on the 28th. And same situation, right? It was a probate postcard. I had been mailing them postcards for close to 3 years. It was their mom's house. Mom passed, 3 years ago, right?
Yeah.
And I was still sending them mail, but they decided to keep the house and they rented it out, right? And they had tenants in there. And then one of their tenants trashed the house 2 years later.
Look at that.
And they're like, we don't have the time or the energy to fix this house. Can we just, we'd love to. And they called me because they still got my postcard I basically do the old stuff like every 90 days. They get a card from me, right? And they got a card and they called and I bought that. They gave me a price. They said, we would like to get this for it. I told my acquisitions guy, I was like, dude, what they're asking for is a deal. Just give them what they're asking.
Just get it under contract. Yeah,
deeper.
Just fuck around with it. Yeah.
Just go there and get the house under contract and let's do it. And I wholetailed that house. I paid to clean it out. And I netted $60,000 on that deal.
Look at that.
I just put it on the MLS just as is. I cleared all the junk out, right? Because they wanted to sell it with all the crap in it, right? They didn't want...
It's easy.
Right. So I just I think it cost me $3 or $4 to clean the whole place out, get it just kind of presentable. And I listed on MLS as is, and I had 30 showings in 2 days and 8 offers and went with a cash offer with no due diligence, 2-week closing. Boom. 10,000 over my list price. So
that's it. That's
boom.
Where the money's made.
Dude, so man, there's so much gold in this episode, man. It's always good chatting with you, brother, and we got to get together soon. Maybe we need to do one of these Stanley Cup games. Mason Q's father.
I'm gonna have to probably go up to New York City with you. You're at a major airport. I'm in a major airport, so we have easy
right
of traveling now that I'm in a major city.
Again. That's right. Well, let's do it, man. Well, hey, I appreciate you coming on, Greg. If anybody wants to get a hold of you, how can they get a hold of you? What's the best way to get in touch with you?
Yeah, I would say if they want to check out my YouTube channel, I've been trying to grow that. YouTube.com, I think / Greg Helbeck REI or something like that.
Okay.
I got we put out 2 episodes a week. I'm always putting out content. So check out the YouTube channel if you want more in-depth knowledge, all value-based, shorter episodes a lot of the times. So you can get that insight, from the computer to your brain to the streets.
Awesome. Love it, man. Well, hey, I appreciate you coming on, Greg. It's always good to chat with you, man. And yeah, man. So enjoy your day. Enjoy Seattle. I guess it's still morning there. It's 1:30 in the afternoon here. So
it's 10:30 Pacific. Yep. 10:30 Pacific out here. And I have to get up early on the West Coast or else I'm in trouble. Gotta get up early out here. But then you're done by 3:30 and you're good to go. It's nice.
Right. This is true. Cool. Well, hey, brother, thanks for coming on. Good chatting with you, and we'll talk to you later, man.
All right.